Alright, everybody. So, for basically the last month now, the top of the right-wing agenda has been convincing America that Dylan Mulvaney, this random, popular TikTok trans woman, is actually a predator, pedophile, groomer who has been sponsored by a large beer company and is now being funded and supported by, like, the mainstream. Now, if you've been paying attention, you'll know that the core of all of this drama is absolute bull. For those who haven't been following this since the beginning, the reason why conservatives claim so desperately that Dylan Mulvaney is a pedophile or a groomer or any list of other negative things having to do with predating on children or whatever is because of a single TikTok that she released in which she captioned it, "My first week," I think it was, "as a girl." That is it. That is what she did. She put out a TikTok where she was dressed femininely and called herself a girl. Now, literally in any other circumstance, this would just be like nothing. Like you wouldn't even notice. You wouldn't even think about it. It would just fly over you like a bird in the wind. But the right is so desperate to find any way to turn the sort of current of the culture war against anyone who's trans, because at this point, to them, a single trans person being accepted by the, normie culture, I guess, is bad for them. Like, they can't even allow that. It's why they're so against, Chris being accepted and coming out as trans by Mr. Beast, because so many young people watch Mr. Beast and are going to see Mr. Beast being accepting of trans people, and that's going to rub off on them in some way, and the right is terrified of that. Gen Z's already extremely progressive as it is, so there's a lot to fear from the right's perspective if Gen Z is getting even more exposed to minority groups the right considers subhuman, because those people are much less likely to support the right if they have some level of humanity and empathy in their hearts for those minority groups the right just despises and wants to take rights away from. Now, as far as Dylan Mulvaney, literally all she did was say that she was a girl. And the right has decided to twist that into this, she's cosplaying as a little girl to, satisfy a fetish narrative. Now, this is ridiculous because nothing about what Dylan Mulvaney does, other than, occasionally dressing in a way that is, I guess, reminiscent of how a young girl maybe might dress, but also cis women dress this way literally all the time, and it's not a big deal, because they're adults and cis, so no one cares. It really doesn't seem like there's any real traction to grab onto this claim from, but the right is trying anyway, and they have been pushing this entire anti-Bud Light culture war narrative entirely off of that, and it has gotten wild. It's gotten to the point where Anheuser-Busch facilities all over the country have gotten bomb threats and have been forced to shut down and have bomb squads sweep them to check for whether or not there's a real threat. Thankfully, there has not been, but it is very clear the right is willing to go to some pretty fucked up lengths just to fuck with a company who dared to send a free beer can to a trans woman. That's literally all that happened. That is it. This is so insane to me, dude. It really, really is. As a matter of fact, if you want to see some examples of how deranged it's made people, it's actually funny because it's also revealed how few of these conservative chuds actually seem to be competent with a firearm despite basing their entire culture and personalities around them. I love me some guns. Chat, you should know at this point, I love me some guns, alright? I'm a big gun fan, but my entire personality is not guns. Right-wingers love making their personality about guns, but I love the fact that this revealed a lot of them are pretty, incompetent with them. for as much as they love touting that it's everything they care about. Anyway, this is an example of how deranged the right has gotten due to Dylan Mulvaney simply getting sent a free custom can of beer by Bud Light for a simple promotion deal.
Go woke, go broke.
Oh, hold on. I should turn it up for you guys so you can hear the glory.
Go woke, go broke.
I like how not only does she have a jump cut there because her aim was bad, and she ended up hitting her backstop of bras instead of the Bud Light cans, but also you can see at this point in the video either the gun jams and she didn't know how to clear the chamber, or she ran out of rounds in the magazine, and so she starts pretending like she's shooting while someone off to the right is actually the one that's shooting. Pay attention to the beginning of the video when she's shooting for real, and watch the shells coming out of the side of the gun, and watch the muzzle flash and the smoke coming out of the front, and the fact that there's recoil. And then, watch when it stops, see that there are still gunshots going off. They're coming from the right, and she's faking, pointing at the cans. Watch more carefully this time. You can see she's even squeezing the trigger. She's even squeezing the trigger to pretend like she's shooting. Look at her finger when she's pretending to shoot right here, because she's not even shooting here, but there's still shots going off from to her right. She's even squeezing the trigger while pretending she's shooting and aiming. You can see it. Do you think she actually thinks the gun's going off and she's like too much of an airhead to realize there's not a firearm going off in her hands? Look, look how aggressively she's squeezing it too. She's going like dude. That last shot might have actually been her gun firing, but I don't think it was. I think that was just a successful hit on the Bud Light. Is Bud Light red? Or like pinkish?
Go.
Well, the right has really lost their fucking mind over Dylan Mulvaney, to say the least. But Dylan Mulvaney has finally come out of the woodwork after mostly remaining silent in all of this because, I mean, let's be real, I don't think you have any responsibility to speak out when the entire conservative media industrial complex has decided to make you out to be a boogeyman for no reason. She's decided to come out and make a statement, and I decided that we should probably go over it and watch it, but yeah, let's go ahead and take a look. I think she deserves to have her own voice amplified after so many people have been, like, trouncing over her and accusing her of the most horrific shit, completely baselessly for nothing other than money and political capital. All right, let's let her speak for herself.
It's day 9,610 of being a human, and I'm going to try to leave gender out of this since that's how we found ourselves here. I've been offline for a few weeks, and a lot has been said about me, some of which is so far from my truth that I was like hearing my name and I didn't even know who they were talking about sometimes. It's a very disassociative feeling. And it was so loud that I didn't even feel part of the conversation. So I decided to take the back seat.
This is how it feels sometimes. Like when you first start being a political figure online or any type of public figure, and people start hating you so much that they start, for example, like if they go to like forums like Kiwi Farms, whatever, to like post about you, and they're so desperate to hate you, you see them making things up, like literally in real time, devising a conspiracy theory about you that's like so far from reality. It just blows your mind that somebody could genuinely believe this about you. You feel almost like an out-of-body experience in that moment. I had the same experience the first time I was sent like the BreadTube Kiwi Farms thread for the first time, and like people were talking about me, and I was reading, I was like, this shit's so deranged. Do they really believe this, or is this just like anything they can think of negative they'll say about me here? But like, this isn't like directed at me, so like, what's the point here? Do they believe it? I don't. It's very bizarre. I can understand how she feels in that respect. Not to the same degree, but I understand what general bizarre feeling that kind of takes you over that you feel the first time that happens. I get that.
Seat and just let them tucker themselves out. But then I remembered that nearly 13 million people at some point enjoyed me enough to hit the follow button on these apps. And I was like, wait. I want to talk to those people. So hi, long time no talk. How are you? You might want to grab a beverage. This is going to be a longer one. But I'm doing okay. And I'm trying this new thing where I don't pressure myself to share anything before I'm ready.
I really hope she has, like, thick skin behind the scenes. I hope she's handling this well, because all of this is completely unfounded. A lot of the left was basically unwilling to defend Dylan Mulvaney when all of this started. I actually did a video before the right started this whole fiasco with the Bud Light thing, way, like, maybe a month before all of this, when Dylan Mulvaney was just kinda getting some shit from a few select right-wing figures, and I said, like, I feel like this lady's getting a lot of shit, and she's gonna end up being the left's, like, the new Anita Sarkeesian of this new age of right-wing domination. 6 days away from this all happening, I made a video about Dylan Mulvaney and the right hating her, and about how she's going to end up being, like, this age of right-wing cultural whatevers, Anita Sarkeesian equivalent, essentially. Where a bunch of people are just deranged for essentially no reason. For someone who really doesn't matter that much. For reasons that are basically abstracted to the point that, like, nobody knows the actual truth at this point. Maybe I am a seer, and I can see the future. Because this is getting a little excessive. Literally a week before all this goes down, I make that video.
And I'm actually sitting with my emotions, not reacting, waiting to respond. And shockingly, I can't recommend it more. Like, therapy is paying off here, people.
That's
but
good.
I do have some thoughts to share with you. So I've been having crazy deja vu because...
You did also kind of call the Crowder video? Wait, really? Someone commented something like that on my... Crowder video, actually. Hold on. What did I predict? Someone said, wow, and I'm pretty sure that was before the Crowder video came out. Let me see. They commented a timestamp. I know you, like, legit watch my videos. Okay, here it is. Dark Excalibur 42, who I believe is in chat right now. Yeah, you are in chat right now. You commented this. You commented the timestamp. Nice. Said, damn, Zan, and you recorded this before the Steven Crowder Watch It video came out, didn't you? All right, so here is apparently my prediction before the Steven Crowder leak video came out. The wife who's basically treated like a strictness constantly and subjected and chore slave. Imagine the stereotypical conservative household. Abusive husband, children who are basically treated like property and chore slaves, and talked down to constantly and subjected to, rigorous punishment and strictness. The wife who's basically treated like a broodmare, who's forced to cater to the husband's every whim. The husband who probably cheats and just does whatever the fuck he wants and acts like a fat, lazy slob. This is the vast majority of, like, the stereotypical conservative household, right? That is a miniature model of what the right wants to instill in the entire country. That is how they want the country to be run. A highly patriarchal, extremely traditionally conservative, abusive, fascistic society that is basically a larger version of your average conservative household, where one man is at the top calling all the shots. Listen, guys. It's not that I'm psychic. It's not that I'm psychic. It's that I know these people very well, okay? I know these people very well. Alright? One truth will always be certain. The people who dedicate themselves to spreading conservatism will always have the darkest, most evil skeletons in their closet. The only good people that end up pushing conservative rhetoric eventually end up getting out of it on their own. Hunter Avalon, for example, is a good example of this. He's a good guy. He believed this shit. He was indoctrinated in this shit from a young age. He grew up in a Christian household and he was literally Christian up until like 8 years ago, maybe. Like a hardcore, like true believer, like Bible thumper type of Christian, you know? Yeah, he got out of it. But like, if you always assume these people are evil, and your assumption will generally be proven right.
Because I'm an adult, I'm 26, and throughout childhood, I was called too feminine and over the top. And here I am now being called all those same things, but this time it's from other adults. And if they're going to accuse me of anything, it should be that I'm a theater person and that I'm camp, but this is just my personality.
True! That was what I made fun of her in my video for. Listen, I hope that, Dylan Mulvaney sees some of the defense videos that have been made of her. Like, I hope she sees that there are, like, a good amount of people online coming out here to her defense, because as much as I do think it's cringe to be, like, parasocially defending a random person online who's a public figure, I think at this point, like, it's more of a political, like, struggle at this point than it is, like, a drama where a certain online figure is getting harassed. Like, this has become it has become a political issue as to whether or not Dylan Mulvaney should be executed, essentially. And that is the right's doing.
And it always has been. What I'm struggling with most is that I grew up in a conservative family, and I'm extremely privileged because they still love me very much. And I grew up in the church, and I still have my faith, which I am really trying to hold on to right now. But I've always tried.
Dude, she's even a Christian. There's nothing you can do to please these people. They will find any reason to justify your death to the vast majority of, like, the normie populace. Because, believe it or not, the vast majority of Americans are not in favor of genociding all trans people just because they're maybe a little weird or kind of gross them out or whatever. They've got to be convinced that trans people are actually a real threat for that to be something they're willing to go through with. That's, of course, how the Nazis radicalized the German population into being okay with exterminating a significant amount of the population, not just Jewish people, but a bunch of other groups as well that were dehumanized prior to the actual, like, exterminations and holocausting. Basically, Dylan Mulvaney is, like, the best trans person there could be if you're looking from what the conservatives say their standard is of a good trans person. Obviously, the right has essentially walked back the idea of there being any good trans people at this point, but back in, like, 2016, 2017, 2018, and even 2019, 2020, they were still open to the idea of having certain trans pick-me's in their, like, movement that they were okay with because they met a certain standard, I guess, that they would arbitrarily designate that said that they were okay. Like, you are not one of the bad ones. But I think what really started the fall off of that was when Lauren Witzke, went off on Blair White. I think that was really the start of the realization of, as it turns out, if you vote for the leopards eating people's faces party, your face might get eaten by a leopard. You can't do anything. Even if you do what they want you to do, and you act like the perfect model trans, they will still want you fucking dead. If you don't know who Lauren Witzke is, then you're better off not knowing, my friend.
To love everyone, even the people that make it really, really hard. And I think it's okay to be frustrated with someone or confused. But what I'm struggling to understand is the need to dehumanize and to be cruel. I don't think that's right.
Because to conservatives, as I've said so many times to the point that it's actually straining my vocal cords, to conservatives, cruelty to minorities is a virtue. Hypers in chat, if you've heard me say this, how many times has this statement been proven true time and time again? It is a virtuous, heroic, praiseworthy action to be cruel towards a minority when you're a conservative. It's the core of their comedy. It's the core of their rhetoric. It's the core of their belief system. It's what their entire ideology is centered around. Their superiority, and in every way, not only the idea that they are superior and, other groups are inferior to them, but that they need to remind those other groups they are inferior in every way possible, legally, legislatively, socially, and in regards to humor and jokes and whatnot. Like, their favorite type of humor is jokes that are centered around the idea of putting down minority groups they see as inferior, right? It's all centered around that core issue. They're just hateful. They're simply evil.